Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something incredibly profound. It's a psychological journey that so many people go through, but almost always in total silence. We're talking about that massive transition from being everybody's emotional sponge to finally just choosing to walk away and protect your peace. If you've ever felt guilty for stepping back from a draining relationship, or if you've ever wondered why your need to just be alone completely overpowers your desire to socialize, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to unpack the fascinating psychology behind why we cut people off. And spoiler alert, it's definitely not because you're broken.
Okay, let's just get right into it. According to the US Surgeon General, we are officially in a loneliness epidemic. It's a pretty staggering statistic, honestly. 1 in 4 adults report feeling completely isolated, disconnected, and alone. But here's the wild difference for the people we're talking about today. You actually chose it. You looked at your phone, saw someone's name pop up, and decided, nope, not today, not anymore. And the little secret that nobody really talks about, when you made that choice, you didn't feel lonely at all, you felt at peace.
So let's start with section 1, the urge to disconnect, and that shift from being a sponge to choosing silence.
When exactly did you become the person who just walks away without looking back? Because you weren't always like this, right? There was probably a long stretch of time where you were the reliable one. You were the friend picking up the phone for those 2 a.m. crisis calls. You absorbed everyone's problems like a sponge, just trying to keep the peace. You gave the advice, watched them totally ignore it, and still welcomed them back. Until, one day, something just shifted. You stopped picking up, and shockingly, the world didn't end. It just got a lot quieter. Stepping back wasn't a sign of weakness. Your brain was doing exactly what it was biologically designed to do. To understand this, we have to look at Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory. It's this psychological model that explains how your nervous system automatically shifts gears to protect you. When you've been drained one too many times, your brain literally doesn't wait for your permission. It intervenes to protect your energy.
And what's actually brilliant here is how your brain flips a switch to make this happen. It pulls you right out of your normal social mode and drops you into what researchers call the dorsal vagal response. Basically, it's a biological state of shutdown, withdrawal, and energy conservation. So you aren't withdrawing because you're antisocial. You're doing it because your nervous system is literally just doing its job, pulling you out of harm's way to save whatever energy you have left.
But wait, where did your nervous system even learn that people were a threat in the first place? Well, psychologist Murray Bowen calls this emotional cutoff, and it traces all the way back to childhood. For a lot of us, we grew up having to read the room before we could even read a book. You were constantly scanning your parents' faces to figure out the mood of the house. You learned super early that closeness came with a steep cost. So you adapted. That emotional cutoff is just a survival blueprint your younger self created. And now, as an adult, it activates the second someone gets a little too close or a little too chaotic.
Moving on to section 2. Isolation versus healthy boundaries, and really understanding the physical stakes of all this.
Because, well, here's where it gets a little complicated. The urge to disconnect is totally valid, but we have to be super honest about the difference between protecting yourself and building these massive walls that keep absolutely everyone out. Not all cutting off is a good thing. The CDC actually has data on this, showing that prolonged true social isolation bumps up your risk of heart disease by 29% and your risk of stroke by 32%. So the physical stakes are actually incredibly high. But the flip side, which we really don't talk about enough, is that being constantly surrounded by the wrong people can be just as damaging.
So we really need a solid guide to tell the difference between dangerous isolation and healthy protection. Think of it like this. Walls block absolutely everyone out. The good, the bad, the unknown. They're entirely built from fear. Boundaries, on the other hand, are built from self-awareness. They're highly selective. If you cut someone off and you feel this profound sense of relief, that's data. That isn't isolation. That is protection.
You know, society loves to throw around labels like antisocial or withdrawn, assuming something must be wrong with you. But let's completely reframe the terminology here. Loneliness is the painful absence of connection. You're sitting there wishing someone would call. Solitude is the deliberate presence of peace. You haven't lost anything. You've actively curated a peaceful environment. When your phone is quiet, it feels like relief, not rejection.
Which brings us perfectly to section 3, the science of pattern recognition, and exactly why you are so incredibly good at reading people.
Because when you enforce these boundaries and cut someone off, you aren't just doing it randomly or being difficult. You're actually using an incredibly refined early warning system built on thousands of hours of data. And to prove this isn't just in your head, there's a 2023 study in Nature Neuroscience that found people with early emotional stress actually developed heightened activity in their brain's threat detection regions.
Your early environment physically altered your brain. It made you exceptionally talented at reading people, sensing hidden motives, and just feeling when the energy in a room shifts.
Plus, researchers at the University of Iowa found that for people with this background, the frontal lobe, which handles all those complex social decisions, is basically working overtime. So if anyone has ever told you that you're just being too sensitive or paranoid about someone's intentions, seriously, let that go. You are processing social information at a depth most people can't even touch. When your gut screams that someone is going to drain you, you've learned to listen, and you should.
All right, let's head into Section 4, choosing your inner circle and identifying who actually deserves access to you.
So the real question isn't whether you should let people in, it's which people you let in. How do we use this superpower proactively? Well, here are some incredibly practical tips for figuring out who deserves access to your peace using those exact data gathering skills you already have. First up, look for mutual giving. You can easily spot that friend who only calls when they need something, right? Use that data to set a boundary. Second, evaluate compliments. We all know someone whose kindness always seems to come with strings attached. Seek out people whose support is unconditional. And finally, track consistency. Your brain can spot a love-bombing cycle where they overwhelm you with affection and then just vanish a mile away. Trust that instinct. Only give access to people who show consistent, safe behavior over the long haul.
Now, if you're ever worried that keeping your circle super small means you're somehow failing at life, let's look at Harvard's famous 75-year study on happiness. Their conclusion was wonderfully simple. It is not about the quantity of people in your life, it's entirely about the quality. If your circle is tiny but it's filled exclusively with people who truly see you, respect your boundaries, and actually pour back into you, you are doing it perfectly right.
Let's reframe society's judgment one last time. People who don't get your boundaries are probably going to accuse you of running away. But you and I know the truth. Isolation is running away and hiding in chaos. What you're doing? You are building a sanctuary. You are running toward clarity, making the fierce, brave choice to guard your energy and build a life that feels gentle. That's not weakness. That is profound strength.
Which leaves us with this one final, incredibly powerful question for you to take away from this explainer. Who deserves access to your peace? Take a really good look at your circle. Trust that finely tuned brain of yours. Keep the ones who add to your sanctuary and give yourself total permission to just quietly walk away from the rest. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this today, and remember to always protect your peace.